Welcome to the Healing Our Sight podcast. I'm your host, Denise Allen, and today I have with me Vince Basilio, and he is here to share his story of his son, Luca. I met him because he messaged me on my podcast, and I was so thrilled because on one of my former podcasts, I said, please send me a message. There's this little spot you can click on, and I love it because it comes as fan mail, and he's one of the few people who's done that. So thank you for doing that, Vance.
Yeah, I was excited. I wasn't sure you'd respond because you were this big podcaster and I would listen to all of your podcasts. But when you replied, I think the next day, I was just so happy to start that conversation with you.
Yeah, well, when you say I'm this big podcaster, anyone can do a podcast, right?
Yeah, it takes a lot to keep it going. So, and honestly, like we'll get to it later, but it's just been a godsend to have your podcast. I always talk about the patient perspective being like 50% of this journey. And so I've loved it.
I appreciate that so much. That's the whole reason I started. It's for people like you, and just the willingness that you have to come on and talk just means so much to me.
For sure.
So tell us how this whole journey started.
Yeah, for sure. So my son was born in 2020. He was a cesarean, slightly premature, and I mention these details because they become relevant later on. And he also was in breech, right? So we've got three things. But he was delivered. Everything went fine. The first 2 years, he hit all his milestones. We did a lot of the visual activities that you do with a baby, the tummy time, everything.
Mhm,
And right about 2.5 years, I'd taken him for soccer. And when we come back from soccer, he's at the kitchen island just eating his food. He looks down, looks back up, and his eye is fully crossed in.
wow.
And it was myself, my wife, and my mom in the kitchen with him. And we all just had three very different reactions. So my mom thinks it's just a funny trick that a child's playing. So she tells him to, snap out of it. She kind of snaps her fingers. My wife, I think she instinctively takes a picture, just knowing this might be useful later on.
Mhm,
And I basically like go back to my computer and I'm like researching. My go to is like research what is happening. And I think what was really good at the time was every single YouTube link, Reddit post, Facebook blog, everything said the same thing. This is not a one off. If it's one eye crossing in, this is strabismus. It does not get better with time. Go get it checked out. So three
mhm,
very different reactions, but that's how we first saw it, and he did snap out of it really quickly, like within a few seconds. And I think the temptation as a parent is to think that, hey, this is just a one off, it'll blow over. And so we really didn't do anything. We didn't see it again for maybe another month.
mhm,
And this was back in May. And so in June, we see it again when he's in the car, in his car seat, and he's looking at us. And I'm like, okay. So it's not gone away, it's coming back. And then, it goes from being once a month to twice a month to every week. And when it gets to the every week point, I think that was in August, we go and see our family doctor. And our family doctor, she's really, really good. She immediately tells us this is strabismus, go see an ophthalmologist. And at the time, I think it was really good because my dad was actually in contact with one of the best ophthalmologists in Canada, right? And so I'm like, hey, we got the best of the best working on this. And so we book an appointment. We get a rushed appointment, I think, in August itself, which is very rare in Canada to get it that quickly.
yeah,
Um, but when we go and get the ophthalmologist to check it out, he's like, oh, his eye structures are fine, retina's fine, everything's beautiful, no issue. And my wife comes back because she went for the appointment and she's like, yeah, everything's fine. But I knew just from reading everything on Reddit. I mean, thank God for like Reddit. I mean, it's all people that complain about your business, but you need that at the initial phase to know that things are not okay, even when an ophthalmologist says it's okay.
right.
So we basically didn't do anything after that as well. We said, we've gone to an ophthalmologist. What more do you do? Um, But it was his daycare that actually started coming back to us, the teachers in his daycare saying, "Hey, his eye is crossing in and out while he's at school." So I'm like, "Hey, this is progressing. It's not getting better. He's not snapping out of it or learning how to keep his eyes aligned." And so I go to one of the highest rated optometrists in my area, and book an appointment. I think this was now October of the same year. And I think again, a good thing with Reddit is they told me everything that you're supposed to be looking for, what the optometrist is supposed to be checking. And this
Right.
optometrist did none of that. She was dilating his eyes. She didn't mention strabismus once in the whole session.
Mhm.
Um, she said, his eyes seem fine. Let's just put plus 1.5 glasses on him. And I was like, what's the plus 1.5 based on? Because I knew how they were supposed to go and figure out the lens. And she's like, we'll just see if it's too strong. We'll dial it down. But it was just not at all how you're supposed to do this. There was no cover test. There was no stereopsis test. And these are just words to me, but I knew she hadn't mentioned it.
Right.
Um, so that's when I knew I needed to get a better optometrist.
Yeah. Well, a different kind of optometrist, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's one way to put it. I mean, through the first stages of, going through and the country's best ophthalmologist, and then one of the highest rated optometrists, the fact that none of them mentioned strabismus, none of them said esotropia, none of them said any of those words, I still
Mhm.
find that very confusing. And it's something I haven't come to terms with because now, for like a parent, we've actually had two parents just in our neighborhood come up and say that they're experiencing this issue. I give
Mhm.
them the whole lowdown, exactly what to do and how to do it. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, they learn about it in school, but they don't specialize in it, right? And so they're focusing on structure of the
Mhm.
eye, diseases of the eye, those kinds of things instead of the function of the eye, which
Yeah,
is just the developmental optometrist that will do that, right?
exactly.
So, at what point did you find the developmental optometrist? I mean, how did you find her, I guess?
Yeah, so from that last optometrist visit, it's kind of funny. I actually just walked out of the clinic, and I was like, I don't think you guys know what this condition is. And so they were quite surprised. They were kind of fitting him with glasses, and I was like, the 1.5 to start with seems very strange. It's not based on anything. So
Mhm,
walked out. Um, and it was really by chance, I started becoming more strategic with how I looked for the optometrist. I was looking for people that mentioned strabismus on their website, that mentioned esotropia, that mentioned vision therapy. Vision therapy was a brand new word for me. All I had seen on Reddit was surgery, 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 right?
mhm.
Um, and my wife was very, very against surgery. She's like, that seems like a plan Z. Like, let's start with plan ABC, right?
Yes.
And so I found Elite Vision Therapy, which is a clinic that Dr. Peddle works at, who you've had on your podcast.
Right.
And we went to her in October, the end of October, right before Luca's birthday. And it was just the best, but also the scariest appointment because she said everything. She did everything that was supposed to be done.
Mhm,
And she kind of like for the first time said the word, he has strabismus. And
mhm.
she said it's intermittent, partially accommodative esotropia, like just going 3 levels down.
Yeah.
And I remember going to that appointment, I was hoping it was purely accommodative, which means, you put the glasses, it's done, you walk away. But when
Mhm.
she said it was partially, I knew the non-accommodative part was there that was going to take years to work on. So it was scary in that way, but I'm really thankful because she's actually 10 minutes away from me. So I'm going to that clinic
Um,
back and forth all the time. Just even bounce ideas off. They're very open, very, very friendly. And so just to have that proximity, it's one of I think the main reasons why we've made so much progress in the last 2 years.
That is amazing, and
Yeah,
too bad you didn't find her at the very beginning, right?
exactly. I often wonder, like, if I found her in May. I mean, I did take a break between seeing the eye turn and going to find someone just to see if it would resolve on itself. But even if,
Mhm.
in August I'd gone to her, who knows, we would have saved a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to say, and some of the developmental optometrists don't want to start vision therapy until the child is 5 or older, right?
Exactly.
And how did that part of it, work out? I mean, because I think that a lot of people are maybe afraid to start that young, or the doctor's not willing to, or there's just a lot of different challenges when you're working with that young of a child.
Yeah, so when we went for the appointment, she kind of said, let's start with the glasses because the glasses would resolve the accommodative part of Luca's esotropia. So, just for your audience, like he has two things that he's working to resolve. It's one, the accommodative part, where if he's looking at something close, his eye will turn in. But he's
Mhm.
also got a distance component where there is a latent deviation, which means the resting position of one of his eyes is actually inward and not centered like most people's eyes would be.
Mhm.
Um, and so when we put the glasses on, I think I had this incorrect notion that everything was going to be fixed. That I still had in my mind, like once the glasses were on, we were done. I would exhale and this whole thing would be behind us.
Mhm.
Mm. But that obviously was not the case. So before the glasses, I'd say in December, because we had to order the glasses, his turn was getting significantly worse. I mean, it was becoming every day. And then at one point, right in the middle of December, it was like constant for like 6 hours, 8 hours. And that's when I really started panicking because the progression from May to December was just insane. It was just getting more and more intense. And you read about the fact that, if this goes on long enough, there might be amblyopia. The eye might actually switch off completely.
Mhm.
So I will say, like, once we put the glasses on, it went back to being intermittent, which is what his turn is like. Basically, if it's something up close or something in the distance that he needs to focus on.
Mhm.
And so, I messaged her, Dr. Peddle, and I said, "Hey, we've put the glasses on. Great job. It's gone from a constant back to an intermittent, but it's not gone yet." And
Mhm.
she's like, "Oh yeah, it's not gonna go just like that." I mean, I think throughout this whole journey, you'll see her kind of say like, "Hey, it's not gonna go away just like that," and me being like, "Hey, why isn't it gone yet? It'll be this constant back and forth."
Yeah.
But she mentioned, like the vision therapy part is the part that addresses the non-accommodative part.
Mhm.
And so she said he's really young. He's 3,
Yeah.
and vision therapy is expensive. And so she said, "It's up to you guys how you wanna approach this. You can do at home. I'll give you all the material, and you can do it on your own and try to get him to respond to some of it, or you can come for in office." And so we started with the in-home for maybe about 2 months, but very quickly I realized I didn't know what I was doing. Um, I didn't know, like, what to look for, and so
Mhm.
we said, "Okay, let's just do the in-office." I was like, "I don't mind spending the money because if it's gonna help him at this early of an age, I'd rather take that gamble than wait." And she was open to it. She found a great vision therapist in her office, um, who was really good with kids. And I think that's really the key. And in one of your podcasts, someone talks about the the, the relationship between the vision therapist and the child and making it fun. And this was like the most fun, open, extroverted vision therapist. And she almost became like Luca's best friend. And she loved to go there just to play games. If he wanted to take it slower, she would take it slower, and she wasn't looking to me being like, "Hey, I've spent money for this, like, go intense with him." So that was really good. We did, I think, 20 sessions in his first year, and then another 20 in his second year.
Mhm.
And, I will say the first 10 sessions, it's trying to get him to be still and focus on activity for a long time, right, for 45 minutes. And so we didn't see a lot of gains in the first 10 sessions. But then by the 20th session, really things started picking up. And by the 30th session, we were making massive gains, and 40s where we kind of finished off.
Okay. And you have, like, all of the details about where he is right now too, which I think a lot of parents don't even know what any of those numbers mean, right?
Yeah.
Um, do you wanna share some of that with the people who would understand what that means, and then maybe explain a little bit of what that is?
Yeah. And I can kind of explain what the numbers mean as well, just for some of you listeners who don't know. So when he went for his initial checkup in October, he had a latent deviation of about 15 diopters, which I find incredible because for 2.5 years, his brain was overcoming that 15 diopters of deviation to keep his eyes straight. And what that means is his eyeball is 15 diopters inward, like that's its safe resting place. And then when it wants to get fusion, it basically like straightens out, and then he can see straight. So he's got this constant 15 diopters that he's fighting with on his right
Mm,
eye.
mhm.
right eye wants to go in 15, that's its safe space. It wants to like just relax and chill out over there. Um, and when he went for his initial exam, he had zero fusion and zero stereopsis. I mean, he probably had like a high level fusion, but he definitely had zero stereopsis. And what that means for your listeners is he couldn't see in 3D. And obviously, I've never not seen in 3D, so I don't know what that feels like. But I'm guessing feels like looking at a photograph of something. You don't see that depth between the trees and the mountains and the sky and everything. So,
Right.
and I remember thinking, I was like, maybe he's just too young. But then I had my second child, and she was 2 when I took her for the exam, and she had full stereopsis. So
Mhm.
this is definitely unique to him, like, or unique to people with strabismus. So he had no stereopsis and had 15 diopters of esotropia.
Mhm.
The glasses resolved, I want to say like 5 of that. So it brought him to like a 10 diopter deviation. And then we've just been working with vision therapy over the last 2 years. And now it's at about a 5 diopter. And I don't really know if we're going to get it to 0. Maybe we will in the next 2 years. But where it is right now, he's able to get fusion. So just over time, I will say like the 40 sessions of vision therapy that we had, the first 20 were getting rid of that suppression. So it's basically keeping both my eyes pointed straight. And even if there's double vision, that's okay. Because you want to fight through that double vision to line them up instead of the brain saying, hey, I'm seeing double, let's shut one eye off.
Right.
By the 30th session, we had gotten really good fusion. And I'd say from sessions 30 to 40, um, he got stereopsis, and then his stereopsis became really incredible. Like he was getting 50 arc seconds, which is really fine stereopsis, fine 3D. And
Mhm.
he was able to hold that stereopsis through very high angles of base in, which means they're really pushing it to see how much can your eyes be apart and you still can bring them in and get that stereopsis. So
Yeah.
a lot of gains. Yeah.
That is amazing. So is that 50 at all distances, or is that just at a certain distance? I'm assuming they're just checking it at that one distance, right?
Exactly. Yeah. They're checking it like from me to like a computer screen distance. I think it's like 60 centimeters.
Mhm.
Uh, but we've been able to test it even like, I have it on my computer right now and test it at different distances, and he's able to hold that 50 arc seconds pretty well.
That is awesome. Well, that's within the normal range, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I didn't get that information from my doctor initially. I think a lot of doctors don't give their patients those numbers, right? And
Hmm.
so I actually asked my doctor recently, "Hey, what is mine?"
Hmm.
And mine is about that for near, right? But for far away, it's not as good, and so that's what I'm still working on is the distance stereopsis.
Gotcha.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. It's been a lot. It's been a long journey. So, I mean, I think when you look at it overall, you see the gains and you're like, wow, we have done a lot. But when you look at it day to day or week to week, they're very small gains just over an insanely long period of time.
Right. Yeah. Well, so was there a point in time in there where you said, "Oh, well, that's his natural resting place. Maybe we should do surgery because then it will be easier for him to hold it where it needs to be," or how did that all play out?
Yeah, I will say like surgery was this concept or this option that was at the back of my mind the entire 2 years. And my wife was very adamant that we're not doing it.
Mm,
It's kind of funny because her personality type is not to do a lot of research and just to trust that motherly instinct. And for me, it's the complete opposite. I've read, I think, every single blog, video, post on strabismus that there is, like
mm,
article, um, medical journal.
mm,
And I think the thing with surgery is at this age, it's a huge gamble because you
mhm.
don't know what is triggering the strabismus. Is it the fact that the natural resting place is inside? Okay, let's say that's plan A, that's option A, right? So the natural resting position of the eye is in. If you take it out through surgery, you're shortening the muscles on the exterior. You could go too far, cause an exo. You could cause a hypo or a hyper strabismus. You could make it 10 times worse. And
Right.
when you're doing vision therapy with that overcorrection, it's much harder than if it was at the natural resting place. So that's option one.
Yeah.
Option two is maybe the brain is just over accommodating. they call it like a high ACA ratio, which is you're over accommodating for every diopter that you want to accommodate for. And so if it's neurological, then changing the natural resting place doesn't change the brain's behavior to overconverge. And so you could do surgery, bring it out, and the brain's like, whoa, now my eye is way out. It won't register it as being center. And so it might want to bring it back, right? Which is actually what happened to one of his classmates who had strabismus. Um, I think at 8 months, they did the surgery and it was fine. And now at 2.5, it's going back in.
Mhm.
And so now they're like, hey, what do we do? And so I told them, get the glasses, go to Dr. Peddle and see what you can do. So,
Yeah.
but I think that's easier said than done because you say, I won't do surgery and you do this vision therapy, but it's not like vision therapy fixes everything instantly. You have
Mhm.
regression at time when the child is tired and the eye turns in and you're like, maybe surgery could fix this in one day. And then the next day, I don't have to worry about any of this.
Yeah, I think that that's the common response, though. You know, everyone wants the quick fix,
Yeah.
and they think that they're doing the best thing for their child. I see it so often in all of the Facebook strabismus support groups, right?
Hmm.
And that's what the general narrative is. That's what they're hearing from the ophthalmologist or the optometrist, normal optometrist, right? Is,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's gonna fix it." And even afterwards, they'll be on those Facebook groups saying, "Oh, I did the surgery, it fixed it, my child is fine now." And I'm thinking, they might be fine today, but
Yeah.
what's it gonna look like in 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years, right? Because you've done some added some extra trauma to the eye, right? That
Exactly.
doesn't fix what was going on before, which I think also was caused from trauma. Is
Yeah.
that kind of your take on it also?
I think what I've learned now, it's been 2 years that I've been through this process, and I've seen a lot of videos on strabismus surgery as well. I actually watched this one. It was a documentary in New Zealand where the child had done surgery, and the ophthalmologist says, okay, we did the surgery. It looks great now. Let's hope the brain develops fusion naturally and holds it there. And that would, to me, was just the most, and this is a public documentary. He's saying it willingly. I'm like, how can you hope that it holds and doesn't revert? And I think that's what a lot of the ophthalmologists from the videos I've seen, they do the one surgery and then you never talk to them again. Maybe in 1 week after, just to see that everything's healing well, but never
Mm,
again. And
right,
to me, it's so worrying because the amount of work that we had to do with Luca to get fusion and to get stereopsis, that was 2 years of
right,
daily work. So in some cases, for sure, the brain will latch on, but I think that's 5 to 10%. I think 90% of the time, you've got to train the brain to develop that fusion and stereopsis.
right, and we don't have any percentages on it, right? Because no one ever tests any of that.
Yeah.
And then, all of those of us who've gone through a lifetime of strabismus are
Mhm.
looking at it going, "Wait, why should we believe any of you?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I just wish the two of them would talk to each other, right? Because
mhm,
I do think there is a place for surgery in the sense that maybe you did a year or 2 years of vision therapy with the glasses, changing prescriptions to find that sweet spot. But
mhm,
maybe the angle is like 20 to 35 diopters. And maybe bringing it in, if you're bringing a 35 down, you can get it down to like a 5 or 10 without too much risk, and then do vision therapy to lock in that fusion. But if it's like a 10 diopter, you don't want to do fusion and overcorrect and go the other way and make it an exo. And now even just the baseline vision is distorted, is not just when focusing.
right. Well, I know several cases of people who were ESO as babies,
Mhm.
and they were overcorrected, and then they ended up being EXO for the rest of their life, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, that was Melissa's situation too, Melissa Daniels, right?
Yeah.
And then she ended up with vision therapy surgery and more vision therapy just like I did, right?
Hmm.
And I think it makes sense when we're talking about adults
Yeah.
a lot more than when we're talking about children because they're still growing and developing and learning, and it's, I think, an easier process for them to learn how to see correctly.
Yeah. And their faces, growing in size. The space between their eyes is changing. The whole world is changing so much. I don't think it's advisable to go to surgery, at least initially. Like maybe if it's, like I said, a 30 diopter and you want to get it down to a 10 and then do vision therapy. But I think vision therapy needs to bookend it at the start and the finish,
Mhm.
because that's what really keeps the eyes locked in. It's not the surgery. The surgery gets it to where it needs to be so that vision therapy can line it up. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So,
Mm.
as you're doing vision therapy with your child, who was the one that was most involved in the actual day-to-day making sure that that happened? Was that you, or did your wife did you or did you do it together?
No, it was just me. Yeah, it was just me. I had done so much research on it. And every time we went to a vision therapy appointment, I would talk to the vision therapist for like 10 minutes after each session. I was in the room with her, seeing what she was doing. And then she'd always go 10 minutes over and explain everything that she was doing, why she was doing it, what I was supposed to be looking for. So it was only me doing it with Luca every day. And, initially we were like 4 times a week, then 6 times a week. And now we're at 7, like we're doing it every day in the morning.
Mhm,
Um, and I think, it's a progression, because initially when he was 3, he'd obviously be able to do like 10 minutes max, 15. And even then it wasn't that intense or productive. But you kind of develop this relationship. So him and I, we have this like, incredibly strong relationship where we can work on really big, complex things all the
mhm.
time. Like, no matter what he wants to do, we can talk to each other in a way, because I think I've been talking to his brain for the last 2 years, like almost bypassing him. Um, I'll give you an example. Like when we were doing the GTBT chart, which is a chart with red and white letters, and you put these red and green glasses, and it's basically to ensure that your eyes can see both at the same time and not overlap them.
Mhm.
At one point, I noticed he was turning his head to kind of make it easier for him to view the GTBT chart.
Uh-huh.
And so even things like that, it's almost me talking to his brain and like correcting his head. He doesn't know what I'm doing it, but it basically helps him do the exercise correctly.
Mhm.
Um, and so I always say like the home VT, it's really important that you are present for the office VT as a parent to know how to do the home VT, because he could have gone a year with turning his head and doing GTVT and completely missed the point of it, or actually worsened his strabismus because now he's got this compensating head movement to see.
Right. Well, I think parents don't always pay attention to the way the head is moving anyway, right?
Yeah.
Because that can be not just during VT, but in regular daily activities. We're not always conscious of our children doing strange things like that. So, it's great that you are so involved and so hyper aware of all of that. I think that that's amazing. And, I mean, how many parents are in the room with their child when they're doing vision therapy? Is it common in that office?
No, not at all. Um, and and I don't want to compare and judge, but I see a lot of parents, they will drop their child off, and then their 3-year-old or 4-year-old, and they'll close the door on the parents outside on their phone. And I'm like, how are you gonna do home VT? Because your child for sure is gonna wanna cheat and get through it quickly. Every child at that age is gonna wanna just get it done with. They don't care about their eyes being aligned at 4 or 5, right? Um,
Yes.
and I wonder, like, how are you going to find those small, really tiny things? Like, I remember with Luca's vision therapist, we were trying to do fusion, right, for a really long time. And I kinda mentioned to her, I was like, "Hey, he loves animals." Just randomly. I think I heard one of your podcasts that talked about bringing the kids' interest into the VT room. And
Yes.
I was like, hey, he loves animals more than anything on this planet. And she developed this game where she put an elephant on one side and a box on the other. And she used a mirror to kind of get him to put the elephant in the box through his mental acuity.
Uh-huh.
And his participation just tripled overnight. He was
Nice.
just, "I wanna put the elephant in the box. I want to put the bear in the cage. I want to put this and that." So it's really important that you bring the home to the office therapy and the office therapy to the home. Gotta have that.
Yes.
Gotta do the
Yes, you know what, I think that is so powerful, and I think parents can apply that to any activity. I mean,
same.
I'm a piano teacher, and my piano students that have their mom at the lesson do way better than the ones
Exactly.
who drop their child off, especially if the parent knows how to play the piano also, right? So the fact that you're learning how to do VT because you're observing everything that they're telling your child to do is huge.
Yeah, and it's I go for piano classes as well, and I think about the fact that 95% of my gains happen at home. Like, the 5% when I go to the class is she's telling me exactly what to do, what to practice, she's correcting small things, and then she's like, "Go home and do this, repeat it for 6 days," right?
Yeah.
And so, I think there's a misconception that Office VT is gonna address strabismus, when I think it's Office VT is gonna teach you as a parent or as a patient how to address strabismus.
Yes. That's so true.
Yeah.
When you were choosing your optometrist, I know you found one of the very best, but did you go to a bunch of different ones? Or how did you come to that decision after, going to other doctors and not getting any of the answers that you wanted?
So the first one that I went to that wasn't good,
Mm.
she was just highly rated on Google reviews, right? So I had just found her through the reviews. Everyone said she's perfect, but you got to think of it in two different buckets. It's like the optometrist that prescribes glasses and does a really good job prescribing glasses, or the
Mhm.
optometrist that works to resolve that case of strabismus. So they're two different types of things.
Absolutely. Right, but were there any other developmental optometrists near you? Or
No, she
you
was
were
one.
just so fortunate that she was the one?
Honestly, I think it was like a miracle that I found her. That she, I mean, I was obviously looking for proximity because Luca was 3. I didn't want to go and travel very far, and so it just worked out. And I always think, even as I got to know Dr. Peddle and the vision therapist, things only became better with time. It wasn't like they got worse, and I'm just like, I gotta switch to another optometrist. So
Mhm.
I think it was luck.
We always hope that we're also lucky, right?
Yeah,
I feel the same way because my doctor, when I started going, was literally around the corner. He
yeah,
moved his office a little bit further away, but it's still like 10 minutes, right? And so instead of 5.
yeah.
And I think it's the same kind of thing where you're just meant to see that doctor. They're just the right person for the job.
Yeah, and you think about, I always tell parents now, if you're looking for an optometrist for strabismus, make sure that the optometrist is talking about strabismus 24/7. And you see Dr. Pell go on the road. She's meeting with Pilar to do sessions. She's meeting with you. Like, I didn't mention you, and she somehow found you, or you found her. And she's talking about strabismus on podcasts. She's doing lectures on it that I watch. She's writing papers on it that I read. And so you
Mhm.
want someone that's thinking about it 24/7, because I think it is a 24/7 resolution path. It's not something like you take this medication and it's resolved.
Right. Well, and these are doctors that when they're not able to resolve it right away, they're talking to their colleagues
Yeah,
and they're doing their research. They are thinking about it
yeah,
24/7 in relation to who they're helping, right?
exactly.
So, tell us a little bit about how the vision therapy has been going lately and what you're expecting moving forward, because 'cause you've gotten a lot of what you were after, right?
Yeah, so I can kind of talk about how Luca's progression was over the last 2 years. So, when we first put on his glasses, like I mentioned, it was trending towards becoming a constant turn, and then it became intermittent. We started vision therapy, and we started seeing a lot of gains. He was able to like do Lego without an eye turn, which is, it seems simple for a child, but with a child with esotropia, for a parent, it's very worrying. When your child's playing with Lego, you're like, is this eye turn? Like, I gotta get on my knees and kind of see. Uh,
Yeah.
he was making a lot of gains, and then the gains started to slip, and I started getting really worried. And later, when I talked to Dr. Peddle, I kind of realized why they weren't slipping, but he was moving from daycare to kindergarten. He
Mm,
was dropping the nap that he had in daycare and now going a full day without a nap. And that nap, I realized even now, it's so important to reset his eye alignment.
mhm,
He was playing with large toys in kindergarten to drawing and doing very, very fine work in school. And so it wasn't that he was not having a regression, it was that his day was getting significantly more and more complex and demanding. Now he's in senior kindergarten. He's playing a lot more, running a lot more, getting more tired, right? So I think it was this journey where he's making massive gains in BT, but also his demands are getting so much more. So it kind of looks like you're making no progress or actually making negative progress. So I think what really anchored me in those during those times was we had a checkup with Dr. Peddle every 3 months, and on paper, I'm seeing the gains. So I think
Mhm.
that I was just like, I'm going to trust these gains. And now he's at this place where his endurance is built up, he's more automatic with how he can keep alignment. It's not as forced for him. So I think just going through that journey and knowing that there will be ups and downs. Like one day he might be able to color and draw without a turn. The next he might be really tired and have a slight turn. It might be flickering, right? So we're not at that point where he's at 100% resolved. I think he's at like a 95% because about like 6.5 days of the week, his eyes are perfectly lined up in all scenarios all the time, and I'm constantly VTing him. Like, hey, look at that. But I don't actually care about what he's looking at. I'm looking at his eyes when he's looking at it.
Yeah.
And it's usually only on like a Friday end of day in a demanding situation now where he'll have a turn because he's gone through 5 days of school, he's exhausted, and we're okay with that. We're like, okay, this Friday evening is I know there's going to be a turn in if
Mm,
he's coloring or doing Lego.
mm.
Um, but I would like to resolve that. I think just the I'm an engineer by trade, and so I think just the engineer in me wants to like finish the project and move on. So I don't know if I'll
That
ever.
explains a lot of things, actually.
Yes, I don't know if I'll ever let it go, but yeah, we're at a good point.
That is awesome. When you talk to the people that you mentioned, what do you tell them? And because we're gonna pretend that all the people that are listening are in that same situation. I mean, and a lot of them probably are, and that's why they wanna hear your story.
Yeah, I think it's really tough for me to tell a parent how to go through this because out of all the people I know, I'm definitely the most intense person I've met. And let's say if I'm 100% intense, I went like 500% intense for this. So just I don't I can't expect anyone to have to do this. I mean,
Mhm.
we do 30 to 45 minutes of VT, very intense VT every morning in our basement. Um,
Okay.
we are doing VT when he comes back from school. It's not with VT tools, but it's with Lego, it's with animals that he plays with, it's with drawing, with coloring. Um, it's constantly monitoring his eyes and trying different ways to get alignment. Like we found that if his eye is turned, I found a trick over I think 6 months that if he looks away and slowly brings his head in, he can keep that alignment. So small things like that, I don't think any parent is gonna have the time to be with their child just so often. Like I work from home, so I get that opportunity to be with Luca when he's home.
Okay.
There's also the optometrist. Like we were lucky that she was 10 minutes away, so we could go weekly and Luca not put up a fight. We were lucky that his vision therapist was so friendly and fun that he loved working with her. Um,
Mhm.
we were lucky that we had saved money to pay for VT and not, if Dr. Peddle said, hey, he needs another 10 sessions, I was like, okay, we're not going to wait.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think it's a lot. And I think for parents, just give yourselves grace that it is a very challenging condition to resolve. And you might give it 100% and still not see the gains you're looking for. But I think that's okay. As long as you're moving in the right direction, I think with time, things will get better and things will resolve as long as you're just being there every single day. I read this quote where it's repetition, reinvention, recommitment. Like every day you got to repeat, reinvent what you're trying to make it work, and then just recommit. I'm going to do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Dr. Peddle did give you the option of waiting and doing VT when your child was older, right?
Yes. I think she was more worried that I would spend all this money because it is very expensive. And, Luca maybe would not be engaged or throw a tantrum or, not want to do the VT in the office. He might run out. But I
Mhm.
will say I was extremely, extremely lucky in that Luca by nature is very focused. He wants to like spend 2 hours doing one thing. He's very challenge oriented, so he wants to beat someone. If I tell him, "Hey, your Randot score is 13, I need you to get to 15," he will come every morning and be like, "Let's get to 15." And like, how many kids are like that? Because my
Yeah,
daughter, complete opposite. If I tell them to do
yeah,
one thing, they'll do the other. So I think just his personality type was just perfectly lined up for VT and in resolving this. Like if he comes back home and he has a turn with Lego, I'll kind of take him away and try to line it up. And like, how many kids would leave what they're doing to come back later? And so
that
it's
that's
a
so true. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You have to know your child
yeah,
and yourself. Like, what is gonna work with our situation, right?
it-
Yeah, that's critical.
yeah,
And I think that's a good point about, why it works for some people and not for others too, and they'll say, "Oh, well, I tried VT," quotation marks, "and
yeah,
it didn't work for me."
yeah.
But it takes a lot of commitment. I think that's one of the things you've really demonstrated today.
I say that with a grain of salt because I wonder if I was the one with Luca's condition, and I'm a very intense person, like I mentioned.
Mhm.
And after the first year of just spending this money, of doing this daily VT, if it wasn't fully resolved, I don't know if I would have push through. And you have all these other things that you're thinking about. You like, I have work, I'm on camera for my work, there are people around me. I don't know if I would have pushed through because it was really by the end of the second year that the massive gains started happening. I mean, the
Mhm.
small gains were happening in the first 2 years, but I often wonder, I was like, maybe I would have just gone and got surgery. And I don't think it would have worked, but I would have just been so needing that solution that I don't know what I would have done. I think the benefit with a 3-year-old is they have very few things that they're doing in their day. They're playing and they're sleeping. Or
Right?
eating,
And
right?
eating. Yeah. Yeah.
They don't have too much that they're like, "Oh, I gotta get." They have the space to do VT and to line their eyes up. Like, that's his whole thing for the last 2 years has been alignment, right? And he
Right.
has that space for it. If I had strabismus, I don't think I would have that same amount of time.
That's a good point too. Yeah. I I think that that's a plus for doing it when they're young, as long as they can focus.
Yeah.
And I think that that's gonna vary from child to child.
And because we were doing VT before kindergarten, before writing and reading, he was able to almost like grow with writing and reading and find work with VT. It's not like he had developed a turn with all of these activities and then we had to like unravel all of them. So in that way, doing it at 3 really helped him grow with VT.
Mhm. That that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, are you seeing that this is gonna be something that you're just gonna continue to do as kind of a natural practice in your home?
Yeah. So we went for our latest checkup with Dr. Petal. I think it was in December of last year. He hit perfect stereopsis. He hit all of his milestones. The latent deviation, like I mentioned, is still there at about like 5 to 8 diopters. So I don't really know if that's going to reduce or, if his eye is just like, hey, I'm, I like keeping my eye here when there's no fusion. And when there's fusion, I can easily snap it in here.
Yeah.
And so I think the good thing about Dr. Petal as well, she's not trying to push me just to do BT. She's not being like, hey, you got the money, like just like spend it at clinic. She
Right.
actually, she's like, I think you're good enough at home that you can do this on your own, which like how many people who own their own practice would say that?
W
Um,
Yes, but they are not dealing with you all the time. I mean, you were in there learning all the stuff, so
exactly.
that's why you're like a junior vision therapist or maybe even a full-fledged vision therapist at this point.
Yeah. And so I think what she mentioned now is just, keep at the home VT. Um, and let's see. if that latent deviation is going to reduce, or if not, we'll, go from 3 month check-ins to 6 month and
Mhm.
just go from there. But like I said, the engineer in me really wants to knock out that 5 to 8, and because then he's not trying to keep alignment. It's just so natural that, yeah, makes everything much easier.
Right. Well, I think that there's probably a good chance that you'll be able to get there as you just keep it being part of your natural process. We don't know, right? But even if it didn't resolve completely, he'll know what to do.
Yeah. And I think what I'm excited about is, or what really was telling was at 3 and at 4, he doesn't know what eye control is. He doesn't know why he needs to keep his eyes straight. You can explain it, they don't know. But the fact he was doing it at 3 to 4 shows me that when he gets to maybe like 8, 9, at that point, he knows when that eye is shutting off and how to turn it back on. So just like building that muscle memory of,
Mhm,
oh, I lost my right field of view. Okay, I know because it's funny when he does have a turn now, like let's say on the Friday evenings, I can actually be like, straighten up, and he can move that eye independently almost and straighten
mhm.
it up. So I think as he grows older and more mature, that control is just going to be so much more innate in his ability.
Right. Well, and then as he learns techniques for relaxation, and I think relaxation is the thing, honestly, because that's what I find is the thing for me. If I'm feeling the tension in my eyes and the tendency for my eye to just want to wander a little bit, I just have to consciously say, "Okay, breathe. Look at your periphery." Relax out, or I'll
Yeah.
palm, just to get the relaxation part so that the eyes can say, "Oh, it's not fight or flight. I don't have to be concerned. I can just see." Right?
Yeah. And I wonder, like, how much of a battle that was for him initially, because his eye I think when his strabismus first showed up when he was 2.5, his brain had just developed this trick for suppression, right? It's like, "I'm seeing double, I'm seeing blur, like, I just can't do this anymore, I'm just gonna" and then it learned this trick that maybe it was not supposed to learn, to just turn that eye off, right? And so just to almost, like, reacquaint the brain with, "Hey, we're in a safe space where
Mhm,
it's okay to see double, it's okay to see in blur and then fight through it." Yeah, I always wondered from his perspective, and I'll never know his perspective because he was so small.
mhm.
But it's something I always wonder, like, what was he seeing? What did he experience? What innately in his brain was he fighting? And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that your other 2 children don't have a vision issue.
No, no, and we got them checked out, and it was kind of funny because I'll give you a bit of a backstory, but when we started vision therapy, like in session 10, the vision therapist gave us this random exercise for the computer. And, she said, if he can see this, he can see in 3D, but it might not come. She's like, just do it once a week to see if it happens, right? And I would do it once a week with him every day. And it's basically a circle inside of a big circle, and it
Mhm,
moves, and you can see it either it's left, right, up, or down. And for a year and a half, he's like, I don't see any small circle in there. And, I wouldn't get disappointed. I think as an adult, if I was doing it, I'd get very frustrated. Like, why can't I see it? But he, as a 3-year-old, didn't care. He's like, I can't see it.
mhm,
And I remember after a year and a half, I'm just doing it as part of my weekly exercise with him. And he's like, left. I'm like, okay. And I was like, what's the next one? He's like, right. I was like, okay, that's correct again. And then he keeps going up, down, and everything's just perfect. I'm like, oh my God, you can see it. And I like cried that day. I mean, it's so silly because it's just 3D, but we've been doing this for a year and a half.
Right.
And then when my daughter was born, I think at around like 2 years old, I did it with her, and she saw it immediately, day one. She was just like left. I was like, okay. And she got to a really high level of stereopsis with base in and base out. And it was it's just surprising to me how it can come so easily to, like, let's say 95% of people who don't
Mm,
have strabismus. But for that 5, it's like you're spending years trying to get what someone was born with, maybe.
right. Yeah. Well, and a lot of those 5% don't realize that they don't see like everyone else either.
Yeah.
They
Like,
don't
are they seeing depth? Are they seeing color? And I think after I leave this earth and go to heaven or whatever, I really wanna know, like, "Hey, can I go to Luca's body when he was, like, 3 and just see what he was seeing? Like, what was it like?" That would just be my dream to experience what he experienced.
Yeah. Well, you might not like it very much.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing people wonder about is what causes it, you know? And we were talking about the fact that he was premature
Mhm.
and a lot of trauma, surrounding his birth, right? Do
Yeah.
you attribute that to the vision issue?
100%. I think it's the combination of things. So it's not that, every premature baby is gonna have this, not that every cesarean is gonna have this. I think the fact
Mhm,
that, he was a low birth weight, cesarean, in breech, so being upside down,
mhm,
um, I think all those things combined, maybe the eye, like, wasn't fully set in place when it came out. Maybe, there was trauma, and so it was seeing double and, the shaky vision and overcame it, but then when he was 2.5 and wants to focus, because 2.5 is really the time you see it manifest because that's when they wanna see the detail. They don't want the blur. They're like, "I don't wanna see blurry text or blurry objects. I wanna see that t perfectly," right? So
right,
I definitely think because my 2 daughters born after that were born at term, vaginal delivery, not in breech. So
mhm,
the fact that, genetically everyone's the same over here, but it had to be one of the things with the birth that caused it. I don't know for sure. I don't think I'll ever know. But, for the longest time, I would wonder, was it a fall at a playground? I remember once when he was on the swing, like he fell off the swing. I was like, was that what caused it? But then I
mhm,
went through all of the pictures, like, obviously, the thousands of pictures you take when your baby's born, and
mhm.
I think right around 2 months, I saw one picture with that eye turned in. And it's funny because when I took that picture, I didn't think anything of it, 'cause
Yeah.
babies, you just don't notice it, but I saw that picture and I was like, "Okay." Like, it was almost like I could relax that it wasn't something I did, it wasn't like a fall, it wasn't the food he ate, it wasn't. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I
So
totally get it. I had Patricia Lemmer on my podcast a while back, and she talks about the total load, all of the things that combine to create, whatever issue the child has, right? Whether it's autism, whether it's strabismus, or any of those other things that, we deal with. And, she just came out with a new book on the
Mhm.
total load that she applies it to learning disabilities and vision and everything else, right? And so I think that you could look at it from that standpoint too, right?
Yeah.
All of those things just kinda combine, but I like to connect it back to birth too, and I recently was thinking about that with relation to my daughter, and
Mhm.
you probably remember when I talked to my daughter about hers, and we didn't talk about her birth at all, and so I was just thinking about it recently, and I thought, when she was born, she came out with a really enlarged umbilical cord.
Mhm.
My midwife that had been delivering babies for 40 years had never seen anything like it, and she had me take her to the doctor right away, so, I just had her at home. I'm taking her to the doctor that day, and
Yeah.
they look at her and they're like, "She's fine, but we don't know why her umbilical's so big," you know?
Mhm.
And they decided that there had been some trauma to the umbilical cord in utero during the pregnancy, and it had repaired itself, right? And and I had fallen when I was 6
Mhm.
months pregnant and broken my ribs. Like, it was a really bad fall, and it must have damaged the umbilical cord, right?
Yeah.
And so I just started thinking about, okay, that had to have been traumatic to that fetus, right?
Yes.
And, we just don't even know how all of these things combine, and, we end up with a child with the same problem. Like, she's my only one that has the same problem as me.
Yeah. And I think it's important to realize that a lot of things can cause this condition. And, for the longest time in the first maybe 6 months, I was just like, "What caused this? What
Mhm.
did I do?" I don't know. I think as an engineer, like, again, I was like, "What did I do? What did I miss? Did I not do a certain game when he was 3 months old that I was supposed to?" Then
Mhm.
you wonder, like, babies have been born for thousands of years, and
Yep.
not had all these toys and tummy time that we do, right? So, um, and Dr. Peddle had actually asked us in that first October visit, how was Luca's birth? I think that was one of her
Mm,
questions because in the notes, I have all the notes from every appointment. It's written there, born at these many weeks, born cesarean. I think because that feeds into her VT that she organizes because we did a lot of those body movements, the snow angels, the lifting your legs up one at a time. Um,
yeah.
and it's kind of interesting because a lot of those movements he was not able to do for like a year, like
Oh.
crossing like in and walking like a penguin or like a pigeon, or
Mhm,
doing the snow angels um, symmetrically.
mhm.
But my daughters, I always love comparing because you can see how a child without strabismus does everything really fast and pretty much perfect synchronization.
Yeah.
And so just catching him up with all of those things was just it's just enlightening because for me, like vision therapy has gone far beyond the eyes now. It's the body, it's our relationship together.
Yeah.
Like one of the first things that she mentioned as well was no screen time. At the
Mm.
first appointment, and luckily we were a no screen time family before that as well. But
Uh-huh.
she said zero screen time. And
Mhm.
we've kept zero screen time till now. It's just part of who we've become organically. Like obviously now we can look at a screen without an eye turn, but we just have changed fundamentally as a family because of strabismus, because of vision therapy.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that out too. I think that's a key component, and, people ignore that part of things a lot of times,
Yeah.
and it's powerful.
I think there was one, again, not to compare or judge, but there was one parent who was bringing their child in for vision therapy, and um, I think they were there 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early, and they gave their kid a phone, and the kid's playing a game on the phone with an eye turn. I always like to use analogies, but it's trying to teach your child to ride a bike on a mountain going downhill, like giving them a phone. It's just the most visually taxing
Mhm,
activity you can give them when their world is completely shaking, going in and out. So you got to go
mhm.
very slowly. And I think it took us a year and a half to introduce. Um, we gave Luca a small like camera with games on it. It took me a year and a half to get him there to play the games on that because he's eventually going to be exposed to it. So he's got to learn.
Right.
Yeah, a year and a half.
Wow. That is amazing. I just love your story so much. I think it's gonna be really powerful for people to hear it and understand that we talk about how big of a commitment is to
Yeah,
do this, but it really pays off, right? We make the big commitment, and then we get the result,
yeah,
and it's worth every bit of it, right?
100%. And even like going into the vision therapy office, like that's I mean, not that it matters, but that's saving us money right now because I learned so much of what to do that now if Lucas says, "Hey, um, this is blurry," or like this is kind of going in and out, I know exactly what tool to bring, what flipper to bring out, what activity to use to kind of help him get through that. And you start to realize, like at this point, I know 100% it's all in his brain. Like his
Mhm.
brain has these neural pathways where if it's very excited for things like food, his eye will turn in because he wants to see it. So now you're teaching him like, "Hey, it's just food. Just like casually look at it." And then he'll like so you'd realize that surgery sometimes is not the right answer. Like it's the brain's way of, he's an extremely intense person, more than me, which is a bad thing maybe. But you know, it's kind of like regulating that intensity and being like, "Hey, we don't need to over focus because you're excited about seeing something."
Awesome. Yeah. So I think we probably covered what we wanted to with your story, right? Do you
I
have
think.
some some last words of wisdom for our listeners today?
Yeah, so I met a lot of parents who, are seeing this icon for the first time. I mean, it's surprising because you'd think it's 5%, and maybe it's because we have a lot of kids in our area, but we've already met like 3 people that are
Mhm.
going through this journey, right? So maybe what I'll end with is telling you kind of what to do if you see that icon. So first, if you see an eye, like one eye go in or out, it's not your kid being funny or trying a new trick. Like no person is able to move their eyes independently. Um, so, I mean, if both eyes are going in, maybe they're crossing it intentionally. But if one eye is going in or out, like it's most likely strabismus. I think definitely look for developmental optometrist. And, if you can't find one, like talk to Melissa Daniels. She goes and looks in your area and tries to find one, book an appointment with her. And when you find one, make sure the optometrist is doing that cover test. Make sure they're mentioning strabismus or amblyopia or esotropia or exotropia. Make sure they're checking for stereopsis and that the child can see in 3D. And then make sure that they have a vision therapist in office. I see a lot of ones that are online and ones that they'll do it over Zoom. In my opinion, that's 100% not going to work. Because when Luca's vision therapist is there, she is up in his face, like covering things, moving things in and out. You need to be like in person. It's not going to work
Mhm.
online. If you can, if there's no one in your area, maybe online's better than nothing, but try to get someone in person, even if you have to drive like an hour or two. And then I'll just say keep the commitment, like try to do the 30 or 40 sessions. I don't, in some cases, 10 might work, but I think in most it's going to be 30 or 40. That's the sweet spot. And yeah, I think it's the financial commitment. Like, I know it's easier said than done, but try not to let that be a limiting factor because you're eventually going to need it. So, and it's going to be much more expensive, much harder in the future. So try to just do everything as you can now.
I love it. Great. Yeah, and I'll just add one thing because I think there are various levels of difficulty in whatever the situation is, right? And for my own daughter, I think we might have only had about 20 sessions. I think it was
Yeah.
only about 9 months, right? And she was 9. So there's gonna be a lot of variation, and it just depends on the child, right? And if it's
And
like, convergence insufficiency, that usually takes less time, you know? If it's your situation or something that's even more difficult than, how Luca's eyes were, then it may take longer than that.
yeah.
But everyone is just so individual, and you just have to be making that commitment, right?
Yeah. I think the fact that he was younger, like 3, like maybe the first 10 to 20 sessions were kind of baselining him and trying to get him to participate well.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the first session, I was like, "This is going to be 10 sessions, and we're going to be done. It's going to be perfect at the end of it." But I think it's just a journey, and we're still on that journey. And so maybe I'll come back in like a year and be like, "We got rid of that 5 to 8 diopter deviation that's latent." But right now, he's like functionally cured, which is good. Like his eyes line up 95% of the time, and in the 5, he is able to snap it even when it turns. So yeah,
Yeah,
just very happy with the results so far.
yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll have some more people that hear this, and then they go through their journey, and then they come and share it too.
I would love that because honestly, and I would just love more people to know about it so that if they see it, there was this one time I was at a restaurant and the kid had an eye patch on him, and I just wanted to go there and be like, "That's not going to work.
I know.
That's 100% not going to work. Like you use a translucent eye patch just for VT, but you should
Mhm.
not be wearing it 24/7. That's not going to strengthen the eye." So just things like that. I wish people knew more so if they see it, they're able to help wherever they can.
Yeah, yeah, that's my wish as well, and I put it out there every chance I get. So, thank you for adding to the dialogue. It's
Thank
great.
you so much for having me, Denise.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to the Healing Our Sight podcast today. I'd love to connect with you. You can leave a comment by clicking the link in the show notes. I love receiving your messages. You're also invited to join the Healing Our Sight Facebook group. Let me know what resonated with you and how I can better serve you.